Today we're going to talk about user stories and issue management. Specifically, I want to talk about the different aspects of a user story, why they're important, and mostly I'm going to rant about what not to do instead of what to do. So listen in here. I want to start with breaking down these user stories into manageable chunks of work. If they can't be done within like a cadence of whatever your sprints are, 2 weeks, 1 week, 3 weeks, whatever it is, if the user story can't be done, as in the work performed during those, let's call it 2 weeks. If it can't be done, then let's try to break that up into multiple stories. All right, so that being said, we have a lot of things going on here. We have a user story. Why is it called a user story and not a developer story? It's from the user perspective. A user should be able to read that story to a point, kind of understand what that story is about and what the work perform's going to do to benefit and give value to the actual user. So the classic example that I always give is the user doesn't like the color of the font. They want a blue font and it's red. So the user story is as simple as this. Hey, my story is change the color of this particular font to red or whatever color you want, right? So that's the story. In the description, you can give a little bit more detail, but from the user perspective. So the user says, the user doesn't like this color. The user wants a red color instead of blue, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to change this on the title, labeled blah, 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 whatever it might be. But it's got to be from the user perspective. So a user can come in and say, I understand that. Okay, cool. How do I know if the job's done? Well, that's the acceptance criteria. How do I know that it's been performed? You worked for 2 weeks. You're showing me that, you're telling me that the work's done. Prove it. So the acceptance criteria is the customer was satisfied. The customer said, hey, it went from red to blue. That's exactly what I wanted. Accepted. Or you can specifically say that particular title is now blue. So that's how you know it's accepted. It's as simple as that. Don't put the work that needs to be done on the development side. Don't care about that. Don't care if it takes you 10 steps to get to this particular font change, this color. A lot of the problems that I see are people putting in all the work within the story. Hey, we're going to call the Windows API blah, 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 and change it to hexadecimal number 55415, whatever that means, right? A. Throw that in there. Nobody cares. Did it change color from blue to red or red to blue, whatever you wanted? That's all that matters. So don't put all the details in the story. As a developer, you're not being billed or charged or scrutinized by how elaborate your story is. Get the job done. We know you're working 40 hours a week like the rest of us, or 50 or 60, whatever it is. So that's the whole point, is to keep it at that level where a user can understand it. You don't get paid based on Jira stories or whatever technology you're using or notepads you're using to keep track of these stories. That's not how you're getting paid. You're getting paid for getting value to the end user, the customer. So the acceptance criteria, don't make it vague. Don't say, oh, it's, if it's a different shade of color, maybe it'll work, blah, blah, blah. No. It changed from blue to red. That's how you know it worked. Sometimes you need to do some validations within acceptance criteria. Like, hey, it needs to be validated. Validated by who? Who's the arbiter? Who's the go-to person to make sure that this is correct? Find that person. That's your acceptance criteria. This person said it was good. Done. That's it. Simple as that. If you don't have that person, then it might be a little bit more complicated, but don't be vague in your acceptance criteria. It's acceptable when the job is done. So prove that it's done. Show me. Maybe it's just, hey, I demoed it. The user checked it off a list. That's how I know it's accepted. Don't be vague in there. Don't be vague in any of it. Don't collect information. Tell me what information you're collecting. For example, hey, we're going to present information to the user. Okay, what information? And don't be afraid to start off small. You're not presenting everything. Well, we want to give everything to the user. That's not the story. That's the whole entire project. The story is, I want to prove that I can pull column A of this Oracle database's data and present it to the user of this particular row for all I care. Because then we can enhance that. We can say, well, now I want to be able to choose my row. Now I want to add filters. Now I want to do this. Now I want to do that. But the description of that user story needs to reflect the work done, not the project or the epic or what the bigger picture is, but what's the actual work of that particular story in the user's perspective. I know there's so many things that you have to do to get there as a developer. You want to include everything in user stories. Well, in order to do that user story, I have to do X, Y, and Z. Shh, go for it. I don't care what you do. You're getting paid 40 hours a week. But the customer needs to understand. I hope that resonates. It's just a pet peeve of mine. I'm trying to get the teams to understand this better. I'm not the expert. I'm learning Agile as I go as well as most of the team. But I feel like their biggest problem is being the customer, trying to pretend you're the customer. Sure, we should have a product owner that's very close to the customers. Sure, we should have some customers in there, some stakeholders, some end users. But we don't all the time. But still, put your mind in the seat of the customer. Take a look and say, hey, if I brought a customer in, could they understand that story? And go with that route. Understanding at the same time, throughout all of what I just said, that these stories are for us, the team, the developer team, the project manager, the product owners, everybody in the team. So it's really not for the customer. The story itself is not. However, you don't know how many eyes are looking in at these projects. We don't know if somebody might randomly come in. We also need the user to actually help us build these user stories. So even though this is for us, we have customers within our team. It needs to be in their perspective. All right, so that's my rant for today. I hope that this helps you understand a little bit more about user stories. And sorry, that was my angry rant of the day. I will try to be more calm on the next one. Thanks, I'll see you guys.